Hey, thanks for reaching out. So I'm looking at another monitor. It says that you're having a hard time because of the narrow scope of your topic. On the contrary, I think your topic is really great, and it could be argued that it is broad, but it's under researched. And so there's a lot of activity going on right now. Um, so, for example, a lot of the things that I looked up talk about specific incidences of like maybe single moms who are Native American in prison, but there's not a lot written on the big scope. So let me show you how I got around that. And here's a couple of strategies for how you can work on your infographic while incorporating scholarly sources that might not cover everything, but they might just cover like a little angle. And then you kind of build your case with several articles, if that makes sense. Okay, first step. If you go to the Google, this is a great place to start. So incarceration rates of Native Americans, it's going to give you prison policy initiatives. These are not scholarly articles. In fact, this isn't like a source of scholarly data. Typically, they will point to data that they found someplace else. Yeah, look at that. In the United States, Native people, and then there's footnotes. And so they cite their sources, which is cool. So this is not a scholarly article again, but they point to their data. This is a great place to go. So you can get U.S. Department of Justice, which is really cool because I hadn't thought of looking there. So they're pointing to the reports that you can possibly use. Again, it's not scholarly. So scholarly means that somebody proposes a research proposal and they're not associated with any group whatsoever. So if it's a government, then it's kind of considered like a white paper, which is still really credible, but I'll show you what scholarly papers are. They're both evidence-based, but oftentimes white papers are just kind of like, here's all the data, you do whatever you like with it. So that's a great place to go. I also like, where are you? The Wikipedia does the same thing. Lots of sources. Bureau of Justice Statistics is one of them that I found. So what I would like you to do is don't cite Wikipedia, don't cite these things, but go to the Bureau of Justice Statistics. But how do you find stuff in the Bureau of Justice Statistics? Let me show you a cool trick. If you type in the name of something, Bureau of Justice Statistics, let me get rid of this for just a second. So in Google, if you look for something, it'll find it like that. If you look for something with a keyword and then put a colon and then another keyword, what it's doing is it's saying, look for Native American, but only in the context of the keywords that I put before, if that makes sense. It's kind of like searching the website. And then, so there's the AI overview, and I don't know where they're getting their data, but it might be worth clicking on some of the things that they come up with. Are you going to let me go there? American Indians and crime. Hey, whoa, but this is like wildly out of date. AI. At any rate, there's more places to go. But if you go down to the regular search, you can see the extant reports. So here's like American Indian and Alaska Native persons in the federal penitentiary system. So again, it's data. There's a lot of tables and reports that you could cite. So this might be something where you have to talk with your instructor and ask them, can I use federal data or does it have to be a peer-reviewed scholarly article? Let's move into that one next. So when you go to an academic library, there is government documents that show up here, but many of the things that show up are scholarly articles. So what you have is a scholar in criminology or sociology or political science, and they have the idea of researching data, but it has to be as impartial and unbiased as possible. So they research the data based on a question, and then they have their outcomes based on the data that they gather. And it's kind of like a cake recipe. They're all kind of like the same thing, and I'll show you how to get through that. So strategies, basic data, maybe the justice statistics, and then the more in-depth stuff, let me show you how to get into it. So if you go to Advanced Catalog Search, this searches through all the social sciences and all the hard sciences and health sciences and humanities and everything as well. So what we do is if we do a search for Native American, this is not a smart search, so it only looks for those terminology. So if, so let me show you. If we do a search, what it's going to do is it's going to look for Native American together, but it might look for things that have Native here and American there. So first tip is we put it in quotes. Let's see how this, if this reduces it. It should narrow it down from 852,000. Hey, so first tip, if it's more than one word, put it in quote marks. That works in Google too. It makes those keywords stick together. If we have another terminology, we can add those after an or. And spelling counts. Because if you misspell something, it'll only look for that misspelled version. American Indian is what's called an atavistic term. It's something that is going out of usage because it implies bias. So Native American, but then there's also like Aboriginal American and all sorts of different terminologies. These are the big two that I came up with. But you could also use like specific tribal names, Pawnee, Shoshone, Navajo, Hopi. But I think for the level that we're looking at in the criminal court system, they'll typically do it that way. Next, so what we do in the next line is we got to put like key terms. So I would do prison or prisons or penitentiary. So you put in like all these different names. Did I spell that right? I'll be darned. So if you put an or in between each one. So I looked up all the synonyms and tested them. So there's imprison, corrections, correctional facility, incarcerate. I have to put an or here. By the way, the or is over here. So if you want to just like make a bunch of new lines, you could do that too with a bunch of ors. But let me show you one thing right here. If I didn't know if it was imprison or imprisoned, I can do a star and it'll get all the extra ones. So this is incarcerate or incarcerated or incarcerates with that star. Okay. Then when we do a search, it has to have either of these words and any of these words, and that narrows us down. But wait, there's more. If I want this to be the most important part, which I do, because it's going to talk about like intervention programs, I want this to be in the title. Oh, and by the way, stop the video and do your own searches and then come back to the video. I throw a lot of stuff in here really fast. So if you narrow it down to the title, that's a good way to go. Look at that, reflections from the decarceration movement. And then over here on the side, you can narrow down to the peer-reviewed journals. Let me show you what is going on. Okay. That was a correction. There we go. Federal incarceration and Native American felon disenfranchisement in the U.S. West. This is not necessarily telling us anything about what we want to know, but maybe just like a little supporting evidence. This is what you would use this for. First of all, every article, except for this one, has an abstract that you can look at. Let's find a different one. Ooh, this is good. Competing elements of racial discrimination. Okay, there we go. Every scholarly article is going to have kind of a clickbait title where it's going to give you something of like, is this worth it or not? So it's okay to just paw through these. And then when you get to this moment where you can look at the abstract, that's your next moment where you decide whether or not this is something you want to use. The abstracts are a very boiled down version of what matters. Typically, The first part of the abstract will tell you about the problem and the populations. The next section is typically how they gathered data or who they gathered data from. So you can see some like algorithms and numbers in here. But then at the end, they always talk about like where they're coming from and what their conclusions are. And so you don't have to read the scholarly article at all to figure out what main point is. So here it is. We suggest that intervention strategies targeting incarceration prevention should be tailored to the unique experiences of racial, ethnic, minoritized individuals at the greatest risk. So what we have here is it acknowledges mass incarceration, but then they talk about if we recognize this as a problem, this is one way, it's a very simple way, isn't it, of speaking to different populations in order to reduce this. That's a really small part of an infographic. That might be like a flyout menu or a sidebar, something like that. But let me show you what's going on inside the article. I want to get the article. Here we go. Link to online resource. Oh, there's a bunch of databases that you can pick from. I'll pick the one at the top. And of course, it doesn't have it. PLOS. Okay, I'll show you another article in a different time. Sometimes you got to hunt around for them, and it's painful. That's one way to go. Another way to go is narrow down specifically to the social sciences databases that are related to criminology. So instead of searching generically, you can go into criminal justice system database research. So if you go to the library homepage, this search right here where we did the advanced search, that's all the topics. If you go into databases right here, these are more focused. And there's like 450 of them. Some are generic, some are specific. But you can go down this subject menu and find criminology, thankfully. So we don't have to search through all the databases. There's two that have some overlap, criminal justice and criminology collection. Ironically, they're both from the same vendor. And let me show you. So I did that same search, and I'm searching in the document title, and I'm looking for those two things. I'm going to look for peer-reviewed. But this time, we're only looking in criminology academic journals. So if there's 200, ooh, the prison reform movement. When's that from? Oh, 2003. Let's narrow down to the more recent first, so we don't get stuff that's like too out of date. Dun, 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 dun. Religiosity. Looking for populations. We might have to promote this to the abstract. So it's not the title. Ooh, there's only 13. Oh, incarcerated moms. Oh, here we go. The challenges of prisoner reentry faced by Native American returning offenders. Again, ooh, 2017, that's pretty new. Again, what you can do, the article examines economic, social, and cultural challenges American Indian inmates face as they reintegrate back into the community. What is good about this article? If that one looks good to you, then let's go find the full text. Where are you, full text? Let me show you a trick. If we can't find the full text, we can always go back to the library catalog and look for it in quote marks, right? Ding, ding, ding. Okay, let me show you how to use a scholarly article to find stuff for your infographic. So here we have our abstract, so we know what's going on. Policy implications. The first part of a scholarly article is going to be their literature review, where they're going to make statements. It's been established that challenges of reentry vary across dimensions, blah, 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 blah. But when we get into the meat of the article, ooh, their lit review goes on quite a while. We should be able to find data. Oh yeah. Is life expectancy? Oh man, Native Americans are much more likely to die from tuberculosis. Holy cow. So there's the current study, how they gathered data, looking for a table. Yeah. So there's survey demographics. There's reentry challenges, finding a job. Oh, cool. So this is how it is related to finding a job. So it could be that an element of, I would suggest that one infographic element that you could make from this is that the community that you come from and the community that you return to makes a huge impact. We found 2 articles that said that. Makes a huge impact on how, like recidivism, and if you're going to make it, family, keeping a job, abstaining from alcohol, drugs. So the community makes a big difference. Okay, that's a lot of information. Let me show you, there are citation generators in most of these. So there's the APA. There's a citation generator. This one, and I'm going to send you this article just in case you want it. Citation generator. The citation generators are often wrong, but they're getting better, so double check. But let me know how it goes. I think you're right on track. Be okay with the idea that you might not find large scope, but you might have to do little focused pieces that tell a story. But look for those tables, and good luck, and let me know how it goes.